Hey, Kevin Coy here from aselfreliantlife.com, and I wanted to talk to you about what I think is getting the biggest bang for your buck or the most out of your space when you're talking about living in tiny spaces. And the most inexpensive space you can have is really this outdoor space right here on any home. And so when you're talking about living tiny, it's not so much about living inside the house as living out of a house. I mean, you got to go inside to do certain things, but really this outside space is really important, and it's really functional, and it's very inexpensive space for, thinking about in terms of, cost to build. And so I just wanted to talk about this a little bit and point it out to you, so when you're thinking about designing your tiny house and your space, that you really think about the outdoor space. Now, we live in a season, we're in a two-season environment, I guess is what I would say, kind of a spring and fall environment where we live. We're in the Pacific Northwest. It's January 9th today, and it got to be 45 degrees today, which is kind of chilly for this time of year. Usually we're up in the 50s, but it's still pleasant out. It's like fall to me, and this is our winter time. It's 2019 now. And we get rain here, but we really don't get a lot of cold weather per se. We do get some frosts, and we can get a little skiff of snow occasionally, but it's nothing of any consequence that sticks around. So we're fortunate that we can use this space year-round, is I guess what I'm getting my point across here. We've also traveled quite a bit in the last few months into some other countries and some island nations and so forth, and we really found that in those climates, which were tropical, outside space is almost more important than inside space, because inside space has a certain amount of functionality to it, but they spend a tremendous amount of time outside. The weather's nice all the time. It's if you can get out here underneath a covered space and you've got shade and you've got a breeze, it's very pleasant and comfortable to be outside versus inside. And in fact, it costs a lot of money to try to condition the environment inside the house, and so it's far less expensive to be out here, but you do have some considerations for dealing with the weather. And so in our environment, we have a fair amount of rain year-round. A lot of it comes in the wintertime. We get wind, but we have this nice covered space, and what I'm standing in right now is 24 feet wide across the front of the house here, and then 12 feet deep this way. So it's almost 300 square feet, 288 square feet, and it's covered. But yet it's open underneath, and the breeze can come through, the weather can come through. If we get a real heavy wind and rain, it'll come through. But what I found in the tropics was that this is the ideal space. We spent probably 75–80% of our time outside on a regular basis every day, enjoying the weather. But there's a real problem with sun in the tropical areas, and so you've got to be careful not to spend too much time outside in the sun. So having this covered space gets you out of that sun, gives you some shade, and then allows that breeze to come through because it's open. And so it's real comfortable, and people eat outside, they cook outside, they even sleep outside. In those spaces, they have hammocks up and so forth, and they can live out here more so than they would be inside the house. And so their houses are small, and their outdoor spaces are fairly large. And so in our case, our outdoor space is about half the size of the indoor space. So our indoor space is 24 by 24, but our outdoor space here is 12 by 24. And so this is inexpensive space. You're not spending a lot of money to create this space. You've got a roof, and we've extended the roof line of the house out over the porch, and it actually comes out another about 1.5 feet, 18 inches or so beyond the cement patio here, so that we got overhangs, again, because we have a lot of rain and wind. And so this is really important space to us. We spend a ton of time out here every day in this space. Unless there's like 50-mile-an-hour winds and rain, we're out here year-round. And so this cost me very little to put together. And if you're looking at the inside of a house versus the outside space like this, you don't have any plumbing out here. We have a very little bit of electrical. I've literally got 2 outlets on the wall and a light. And so that was part of this part of the house anyway. And so we just, you've already got electrical right there. In a tropical environment, you could have water out here without any concern for the weather causing problems, and a lot of people do. They have outdoor showers, they have outdoor sinks, and you've got a lot of space here that you can use for very little money for, compared to the cost of an indoor environment where you've got to have insulation, plumbing, wiring, interior framing and sheetrock and so forth. That's adding a lot of cost. And so out here, it's inexpensive. Now, maybe some of you are in a 4-season climate and you're going to have some really cold weather part of the year, and you're not going to want to necessarily be out here. Well, that's not entirely true, because with a little bit of modification, still very inexpensively, you can create a sort of an outdoor living room area here and have some inexpensive partitions put up, framed in, and then maybe just some plastic glazing or screening put in. And that would allow you to spend more time out here. You could even have supplemental heat out here just to take the bite of winter off, and then be able to spend time out here. Oftentimes what we do, or used to do, was go inside our greenhouse when the weather was bad, if we wanted to come outside and sit and not have to just be stuck in the house all day. And so that's an option as well. But it costs very little. There's framing and then an exterior skin, and that's it. And you can do that to a porch. And if you're living in an area where maybe the summertime is really buggy and you don't like being outside because of the mosquitoes or other insects that are bothering you, flies, whatever, you can screen these in. Again, very inexpensively compared to indoor living space, and still enjoy a tremendous amount of outside space here that's very utilitarian. And you can see that we live out here. We have chair and tables over here. We've got lighting for ambiance. We've got some plants and a little bit of a garden edge here. We got some bird feeders. We got a little thermostat or thermometer over here that shows what our temperature is. And it's very convenient. It's very nice to be able to spend some time out here. The animals come up. We can enjoy the birds, and just a multitude of reasons why using this space is really good and the most inexpensive part of our home. And so I just thought I would point that out. What I see oftentimes in other countries is a very, very small dwelling as far as the interior space goes, and a large amount of covered space outside, again, because you can pretty much live outside in a lot of environments other than maybe a wintertime environment where you've really got some cold weather, and that's only temporary. I mean, we spent 30 years in a 4-season climate, and the covered patio we used even in the wintertime to go outside on a nice day when the sun's shining, and you can still warm up a little bit, and you've got a certain amount of shelter here. Sure, the breeze can come through, but the snow's not going to necessarily get in here unless it's really blowing, or the rain. And so you can actually sit out here even when the weather is not perfect and still enjoy the space and have that extra outdoor, and it feels bigger because there's no walls. I mean, there's the back wall of the house here, but when you're looking out like this, you've got all this outside space. And we'll do some shots of this during the day too. We just wound up starting the video after dark, but I'll let you see it in a daytime environment as well. And I've spent a ton of time out here today. It got 45 degrees out. It'll be in the 50s tomorrow. And we're out here all the time. We eat out here. We sit out here and listen to the radio. We talk. We hang out. It's just great space and very little cost. There's no insulation in this area, and we don't have bugs to worry about, so we don't worry about screening it in, which some people would. Even in the tropical climates we were in, there was really no bugs bothering us. And so we had all this outside space with picnic tables and comfortable chairs, and we spent pretty much, other than going inside to use a bathroom, cook, and sleep, we were outside. And we do that again here too quite a bit, even in January like it is now. So I just thought I'd bring that out a little bit and have you really think about that covered space outside. gives you shelter from the elements, and yet a lot of inexpensive space to have living outside of your house rather than thinking you have to think that you're living in a house. We live out of a house. We use it, but we don't spend tons of time in there, because why would you when you got such a nice environment out here? So we'll do a little shoot here tomorrow during the day so you can see what it looks like. We're still working on some of the finishing touches here, but I just thought I'd get that out there to you while you're thinking about planning your space. Okay, so I promised a daytime view, and so here we are. Again, we're mid-January in the Pacific Northwest. We call it the PNW, and it's a nice sunny day, and it's going to be, it's about 55 degrees right now, but it's pushing towards 60 this afternoon, and we're in, you know, we're in the middle of winter basically, and yet here's our climate. We got a nice little kind of what I call a spring break right in the middle of January, so we got this nice weather window for a week. No rain, sunny, fairly warm for this time of year, and so we're enjoying it. We're out here every day, and so here's, you know, we designed the house and situated it on the property. Site planning is very important. So in the summertime, the sun's going right over the top of us like this, and this is, east is this way away from the camera here, west is that way, sunset toward the beach this direction. And so we're, you know, we've got some morning sun coming through here, and then we get away from the sun in the afternoon when it's hotter, so we can sit under here and it's nice and cool, and then the evening again we get that nice little bit of sunshine as it's starting to cool off, and a great sunset out back, which is always phenomenal. And so in the wintertime, however, the sun's sitting way out here in the south, and so we can take advantage of that because of our overhang. We get to sit down and enjoy the sunshine coming in and warming us up, and it warms up this concrete slab, and it keeps it comfortable up in here. And so that's another element that if you're considering doing something like this, concrete is a thermal sink, and so it'll absorb sunshine and heat during the day and then radiate it back out at night. Now, interesting, we get a number of frosts throughout the year in the wintertime, and we have a bunch of plants across the front of the patio here, and also some potted plants that are up here on the tables and on the edges of the patio. And quite a few of these are perennial, but a lot of them are also annuals that wouldn't tolerate a four-season climate. They die back in the winter and then they come back up in the spring. But because of this microclimate that we've created here with this patio and the heat sink, we've got a bunch of plants out here that have gone through a number of frosts already, and it didn't bother them. Because they're sitting right up here in this area, this buffers that cold zone so that in the middle of the night when it gets down below freezing, it's not going to damage these plants. And so that was just kind of an added benefit to us. If we were to enclose this patio, it would turn even more of a microclimate, and we'd have even more ability to do things like that. We get to visit with the wildlife out here. Anissa was sitting out here not that long ago in the evening, and a couple of raccoons came walking right up out of the yard over here and onto the patio to visit. We get a lot of birds, a lot of squirrels, deer, an occasional bear walks through, coyotes. So there's, you know, when you're out here in this indoor-outdoor kind of environment, you get the benefit of you know, being able to interact with the wildlife as well, which is always fun. We've got bird feeders and stuff hanging up here, and they always come up and spend time around us, and it's cool to do. So we do have the utility of this space as well. We've used it to stage and store things temporarily as we're working on the house, and we've got a pile of lumber right here that's going to go into the finishing of the project out here, and so it's sitting here out of the weather right now. Obviously we've got a motorcycle sitting over there underneath the tarp for the couple of months that we don't want it out here in the rain, and so we've been able to just tuck it up under here for the time being. So it's really multi-use space for us. We enjoy it on a daily basis. We're going to really enjoy it on days like today when in the middle of winter we can sit out here and the sun's warm and it bounces off the back of the house wall here, and absorbs into the concrete, and we get that added benefit later this evening when it starts to cool off, that it's still warmer underneath this space than it would be out in the yard. And so we're really, you know, enjoying it. I can't really tell you how important it is to have this type of space with your home, especially when you're talking about a small interior space. This makes a big difference when you can have that outdoor covered space where you're you know, kind of getting out of the elements. You don't have to deal with downpours of rain or snow or the, you know, the blazing sun, and yet you can, if you want to go in and out of that space, you can do that, but you've got this space as well, so you can really enjoy for certainly a heck of a lot less money to create a space like this than it is to create an indoor space that's all enclosed and has all the insulation and the plumbing and infrastructure that makes it more expensive. So if you want to get away, it's a kind of a hack here. If you want to get away with a smaller interior space, have more outside space that's usable outside of the weather windows that we have to deal with in whatever climate we're in, because this is really going to add to it. I know a guy that I spoke with in Costa Rica this year, and he lives up in the jungle, up on a mountain, and what he did was, they get a lot of rain there, they get a lot of sun there, and so he built what amounts to a very large deck, like 40 by 40, and then put a big roof over it with overhangs, and it's just a slanted shed roof, and he uses that to catch water. And also I think he has his solar panels up there, which again he can take advantage of in his climate. And then he built a very small dwelling space sort of centered inside that space, and so it's very small. It's a little one-bedroom apartment is what it boils down to, because and they don't have windows, they have screens, and they have you know, shutters that they can shut if they want to go away and lock it up to be secure. But it's just, you know, there's no reason to have, they don't even have insulation down there. It's pointless. So they take advantage of that big deck space around a very small interior dwelling that they just use for sleeping, eating, bathing, whatever, but they spend most of their time outside, and that's because the climate allows for it. And so you just have to kind of think about your climate that you want to be in and what is going to be appropriate. But you know, covered space is always useful, and so I think it's money well saved or spent, whichever way you want to look at it, to include in your project. So anyway, I'll end that with that, and we'll see you out there on the next video.